Shall I start, sir?
Yes.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kalpana Chaudhary, founder of Social Tables, managing trustee and chairperson of Jan Seva Foundation, Being the Change, and Lagna.com. Lagna.com is a matrimony portal for differently able acid and cancer survivors. Along with it, co-chairperson of ASSOCHAM State Women and Entrepreneur Development Council, GSDC, member at FICCI Flow CII IWN Maharashtra, and Women Economic Forum, and a TEDx speaker. Before diving into the guest introduction, I would like to take a moment to introduce you with Social Tables. Social Tables is committed to sustainable development program with societal well-being and environmental consciousness. Every week, we bring out to you some of the brightest minds from the diverse sector to discuss over a few significant ongoing issues. In this week's speaker series, we have our guest Honorable Dr. Ravi N. Mishra ji, an economist by education, a senior financial sector specialist by profession, a passionate learning leader, a life coach, wellness of body, mind, and soul by hobby, a creative strategist, decision architect, in short, a central banker for more than 3 decades and half. He was the executive director in charge of supervision and subtech of RBI. He had earlier held the position of Principal Chief General Manager of Risk Monitoring Department of RBI and the head of Reserve Bank Staff College, Training Institute of Senior Central Banking Professional of RBI at Chennai. He is head of Financial Stability Unit in RBI and had advised Central Bank of Oman in setting up of the Financial Stability Department post-crisis. He is a chartered association of Indian Institute of Banking and Finance and an awardee of the Golden Jubilee Scholarship of RBI and the Diamond Jubilee Fellowship of Indian Institute of Banking and Finance. He has studied monetary, financial, economic at Jawaharlal Nehru University, MA, Delhi School of Economic Research, scholar, and earned his PhD from Mumbai University. He has written many research papers of topical policy relevance, authored 3 books, and has spoken in reputed international platform on areas of monetary, economic, banking, financial stability, and risk management. A very warm welcome to you on today's speaker series.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you so much, sir. It's our utmost pleasure to have you here with us today. So in today's discussion, we are going to discuss about empowering women, a binding constraint for women in India. So the very first question comes in my mind. By saying what women need to be empowered, many people assume that they are not empowered. Do you think it is true? What is your response toward it? Also, do you think that women just get empowered by just concept?
No, I don't think so at all. Women indeed are not empowered the way they should be, especially in India, even quest globally. Last week only, I read in LinkedIn, Indra Nooyi, former chairman and CEO of PepsiCo, says, women don't belong just on pedestals, don't belong on the sidelines or behind the accomplishments of others. They belong in the ring fighting.
Yes.
She is an epitome of an empowered woman. This is how she rates the quality of women empowerment here. Famous actresses still complain that they paid less than actors despite doing the same kind of work. When 2 lady pilots were authorized to fly the Rafale, it was news yesterday. So this is the state of affairs in India. And what does it all mean? People are still not empowered. So, and now I will tell you an interesting thing. I quote from Swami Vivekananda.
Yes.
Sitting today, it might appear, as you told, just backed by a concept, but I'm just telling for as a joke. He quotes, an Englishman asks Vivekananda, why do your Indian ladies don't shake hands? Swami Vivekananda says, can an ordinary citizen in your country shake hands with your queen? This man says no. Vivekananda says, in our country, each and every woman is a queen. The word queen is used here in a philosophical sense. May be motivated by our Indian culture. Like Indian mythology is replete with stories to reflect that its culture gives primary importance to the dignity of women. Matru Shakti, the power of women or mother, is considered as the ultimate source of strength. When gods used to fail in containing or killing demons, forms of goddesses were created to enhance their strength to face such challenges. Goddess Durga, Mata Kali, Santoshi are all symbols of such physical power. These Shakti or power, as they were specifically created and empowered by the combined forces of the entire God kingdom, could then trounce the forces of evil. Second thing, a visit to any ancient temple will strengthen the point further. These are prominently placed everywhere. Saying, if you don't visit the wife of the god, afterwards you don't get the blessings of the god. Like I will tell about Lord Jagannath temple. If you go to any temple in Lord Jagannath, you will find Mata Lakshmi and Bimala's temples are there. Every devotee has to cross these two temples. But he takes his sister Subhadra when he goes for that famous Rath Yatra. So what does that mean? One can dismiss them as stories from mythology, but the point made here for centuries is women are special. Being the best when he found out women. And they are definitely physically, characteristically different. They also become mothers. But, so these are cultural episodes and we take them as stories only. Not have, but that is what we have done for centuries. It doesn't reflect the realms of reality. The Constitution of India, let us come to this. So this was ancient. Guarantees equality of sexes and in fact grants special favors to women. Can be found in 3 articles of the Constitution. Article 14 says that the government shall not deny to any person equality before law or equal protection of the law. Article 15 declares that government shall not discriminate against any citizen on the ground of sex. Article 15.3 makes a special provision enabling the state to make affirmative discriminations in favor of women. Allows it. Article 42 directs the state to make provision for ensuring just and human conditions of work and maternity relief. Above all, the Constitution regards a fundamental duty on every citizen through Article 15A and E to renounce the practices derogatory to the dignity of women. So you see, it is clearly there in the Constitution. But what is the reality? So I will give an example to make this point. Despite our cultural ethos, the rules enshrined in Indian Constitution, as per National Crime Records Bureau statistics, and this statistics is little dated, 2-3 years old. I think things would have aggravated, it would not have improved. So I am simply using them. There is 1 crime against women every 3 minutes, 1 rape every 29 minutes, 1 dowry death case every 77 minutes, and 1 case of cruelty by husband and relatives every 9 minutes. United Nations data suggests that 27% of the girls and the young women between the ages of 15 to 19 are married in India. Some 0.6 million girls are unborn each year in India due to selective abortions, due to parents' preference for having sons. So doesn't it require a huge call for empowering women? So those people who are talking, they are already empowered. It is just matter of concept, as you told.
Totally agree with you. So there's so much to do. There are so many laws have been made, but how much it has been implemented. Very well said. So having said that, what exactly does empowering women mean according to you? Do you mind explaining it with a context of Indian women especially? Yes.
Madam, the call for empowering women is not new.
Okay.
It has been audible since the early 20th century. Social reformers like Raja Ram Mohan Rai, Chandra Vidyasagar, Mahatma Gandhi, and many others had raised voice against the prevailing disabilities and discriminations of women in the form of lack or absence of education, child marriage, the evil practice of sati, dangers of polygamy, etc. Their efforts culminated in promulgation of the Act of Sati Abolition, 1829, to Widow Remarriage Act in 1856, Child Restrictions Act in 1929, Women's Property Right Act 1937, etc., which were essentially meant to liberate women from various avoidable social evils and religious taboos, and hence to restore back their dignity in the society. Now coming to the exact definition of empowerment. You look for dictionary. I will give mine later. The dictionary meaning of empowerment itself is giving power or authority to an individual. Empowerment of women would mean to create an enabling environment or policy making so that women are equipped to be economically independent, reliant, in addition to providing positive self-esteem to face any difficult situation. This way, women, nearly half the population, can be catalytic to the process of economic and social development. Anyway, this process of such an empowerment is not a destination where you can reach by taking a series of one-off decisions, what we have been doing for last 70-75 years. It is a journey. It is a dynamic process. Woman is the mother, the creator of human society, and hence distinctly different from men. She should accordingly get a specified position in a family, in society, and in the whole economy which she deserves to get. There was news item recently, last 1 week only. We are taking pride of these statistics. I was very pained. That is what, like in the COVID, 52% of the person days generated under NRIGS, April to August 2020, had gone to women. Is the kind of empowered women does we want?
No.
Compete only in the kind of menial works? No, and we take pride in that. They are doing this daily wage laborer work. That's not what was in my dream as a child, what a woman or my sister or my mother should have behaved. The prerequisite of any idea to empower women is to ensure the basics that preserve the dignity of women. If women have no proper clothes to hide themselves while taking bath in public, have no option but to defecate in the open, and most importantly, are compelled, even today, all over the world, to sell their bodies for a piece of bread. Is it not a matter of great shame for the society, which should shoulder this fundamental responsibility? Improving the status, mobility, and visibility of adolescent girls in poor, socially conservative settings would be the logical outcome of a plan of action on women empowerment. From such a standpoint, empowerment could be defined, I quote someone, as the expansion of girls' current and future ability to make and act on strategic life choices. For example, the girl who wishes to study and delay her marriage, or for a married girl who wishes to work and delay her motherhood, should have the legal, mind you, legal, social, and moral authority to make such a choice for herself. In an and I am giving you some example, what I mean empowerment. I will give my structured definition little later. So I am flowing there. In an underdeveloped tribal village, if the illiterate and the poor women congregate to fight for electricity, this had happened in my village, may be called empowerment. If all the government schemes are implemented in the villages by women of the village, that is not being done in my village, that is called empowerment. If the bank staff or officer comes to the rural household to approach and request the female member of the open a savings account in her name and takes the pen to explain to her the implications of various products, she may feel empowered with the feeling of the lady of the house. Sense of being the locus of the control of financial transactions, thanks to such extreme external and reinforcement undertaken by the bank. So this is what is called empowerment, not just telling it like this.
Definitely, sir, definitely. And I also think somewhere, you know, women, especially in India, need to be aware of what all opportunities are available to her, because only then she can be more empowered when she's been aware of everything as well.
Very, very nice point.
Yes.
So, little going back. Apart from the rights given in the Constitution, as I said above.
Yes.
A. Ministry of Human Resource Development and National Commission for Women were constituted as the nodal agencies to steer and safeguard the rights and legal entitlement of women. 2. The 73rd and 74th Amendments 1993 to the Constitution of India have provided for reservation of 33% seats in the Panchayat Raj institutions. There is a national plan of action for the girl child to ensure the survival, protection and development of girls. Goal of the national policy for empowerment of women is to bring about the advancement and development of women empowerment all over India. India is signatory to the third objective of the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, MDG, gender equality and women empowerment, which aims to reduce gender disparities. And in recent times, some schemes have been introduced by the Indian government towards social empowerment of women. These are Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao Yojana, Swachhata Abhijan. Non-NGOs are also engaged in this endeavor, while the corporate sector is doing its lot under their corporate social responsibility initiatives. Yes. By running women empowerment programs in rural and urban areas. Many things are there. But the problem is about implementation. All these are for their decades, but still nothing is happening. Still we find ladies who semi-clad are running in Bombay streets after taxis, selling this or that.
So what steps do you think has been done in eradicating these problems?
As I told, despite all these what I told you,
okay,
inequality in work and society is still glaring.
Okay, and
all the indicators of empowerment, literacy rate, longevity rate, these are all economic variables. Economic growth theory.
So despite all this gender inequality in work and society, it's still a major issue. All indicators such as the literacy rate, the longevity rate, leadership position in business organization, etc., are still grossly adverse for women. What are your ideas on what need to be done to raise them?
That is really the mood question. All these things are there, but still things are where they are. Only few people So we cannot just conclude that women are empowered. Kalpana Chaudhary is empowered. Because a vast majority, wherever you look around, so there is miserable condition. Anyway, I will give some good statistics from economic works in South Asia and the world. In South Asia, for instance, I will go a little slowly to give the data for public consumption. Women carry out up to 90% of unpaid care work, including cooking, cleaning, and looking after children and elderly. They are far less visible than men in work outside the home. Women make up less than a quarter of the paid workforce in India and account for just 17% of GDP, a measure of output that excludes unwaged work. By contrast, women contribute 41% of GDP in China. In 2015, had a relevant conclusion in 2015. World would be a much richer place if more women had paying jobs. Then another statistics. Around 75% of the world's unpaid work undertaken by women. In the vital tasks that keep thousand households functioning, such as childcare and all other things. Bulk of these is essentially the homemakers. It is known puts in the maximum numbers of productive hours a day, but unfortunately, the system remains so blissfully ignorant about this understatement of GDP, which is biased in terms of gender. Some popular sayings on this. People use them as joke in economic literature, but they are very serious. I feel very serious about these statements. What I'm telling. Madam, please hear carefully. If you pay your maid, I am quoting from a British author's writing. If you paid your maid to clean your house, it adds to GDP. Except if you marry her, then it doesn't. What does it mean? If you use a maid servant and pay her, she is included in GDP. If you marry her, it doesn't. Unless she gets access to the credit card, in which case spending probably increases GDP dramatically. In England, I'm telling. I am not quoting India for obvious reasons. In I am quoting again. Sex with your wife does not add to GDP, but sex with a prostitute does, even if it is unreported. According to McKinsey research, if women are utilized to their fullest potential by being encouraged to match the participation in labor markets as men in terms of number of hours worked and at a level of expected productivity, the world economy would be 28.4 trillion or 26% richer. Considering the fact that the potential gains are proportionately greater in India, as fewer women are in paid work, it is likely to witness the highest potential boost at 60%. Accordingly, if the rampant gender inequality issues in Indian societies are addressed properly so that women are encouraged to join the formal workforce, India's GDP could see a jump of around 60% by 2025.
Wow.
It may be interesting and important to note that these numbers do not include the household engagements of women as mother and mentor of a home. Work could be valued at US $10 trillion per year, an amount roughly equivalent to 13% of global GDP, our homemakers' contribution. Women are underrepresented in the contribution to economic growth. With the global average at 37%, India's number at 17% is the lowest in the world. Comparison, China's women contribute 41%, as I told you. Those sub-Saharan Africa, madam, I think they are much underdeveloped. It is 39%.
Oh.
Women in Latin America, it is 33%, and India, it is 17%. Further, in India, women perform 9.8 times the amount of unpaid care work that men. If unpaid work were to be valued and compensated in the same way as paid work, it would contribute $0.3 trillion to India's economic output. As such, if women participation is added to the fullest potential, India will add 2.9 trillion to its annual GDP in 2025, or 65% of GDP. And I aim to become a 5 trillion. So what is the major economic variable? That is why I have captioned it. So we are running after we are barking at the wrong trees only.
True. And also what I feel is that this is a topic that is talked about a lot, but not paid attention to so much at the same time. Many women are suffering even with so many things that they think that cannot.
I will give some suggestions.
As they are unaware of the resources.
No, that's why I have not completed that. I will just suggest some ways how it can be handled. So in our quest, Hence, it can be surmised, as I told you, in our quest for a sustained double-digit growth for India, the binding constraint would be to activate the grossly underutilized potentials of women as a productive factor of production. So instead of going here and there, so this, and there are many empirical research which have proved this in case of South Asian countries, including India. Like if you invest this amount of more money in and health for women, that much rise will be in the GDP. But we are not doing, I am quoting 10, 20 years back's research, but listening, and we are after other kinds of things. And if you take care of these, we will be at 10% very easily. Anyway, I can just recommend, as you wanted, few solutions. One, there should not be any more killing of girl child in mother's wombs. So this is again a slogan. But why is it happening? We are not going to the roots. It is happening because, one, the parents think while she gets born, she will be a burden. She will not be able to earn for herself, nor can contribute the economy, to the family. Number two, she is vulnerable. She will throughout her life till her marriage will be vulnerable to social abuses.
Yes.
But most importantly, her marriage is a huge drain on resources. So they have to spend their whole life. Or if these three things are addressed, so the issue is not lying by banning sex determination, madam, which you have been doing. Three things. So we have to handle those. How it can be handled? If girls will earn themselves, 1% people are doing. So they will earn enough and save their money so that they can finance their marriage themselves. And why girls should finance their marriage? Why should be dowry? So all these things should go. And second point is health and education for girls as a matter of rule. Difference. They are doing out of a sympathy. It is not happening. Why? So my dream would be right to health and education for women should be legislated.
Yes.
The accountability for their implementation should be vested with the block and district level functionaries. Surveys should be conducted afresh now to identify potential such beneficiaries. And steps should be taken to ensure that they are admitted to schools for study at least up to class 12, free of cost. For college and higher studies, talented but poor girl students should be given incentives to pursue. Yes. Do not qualify for this. Should be given skill building training for being school teachers, productive health workers, and agricultural production counselors at village level. They should be encouraged to be in police and paramilitary services and be part of security agencies which are booming nowadays. They can be made part of the implementation of financial inclusion and education programs, including actively participating in the activities of business correspondents for spread of rural banking services. Yes. Training facilities to be imparted at the block level or at least the district level. Should be done to make sure that those poor girls who are not very intelligent are guided to join these institutions. A system of system audit should be created. So that in 3-5 years, that audit should see at block level and village level whether this is happening or not. A big no to child marriage.
Big no to child marriage.
Despite ban on child marriage, especially the girls below the age of 18, this ban still continues. 1 in 3 girls even today are forced to marry as a child, thus depriving of their right to make an independent and informed choice. Again, why this is the reason? Because they don't want to unnecessarily educate, they will not contribute, they will not earn for this. So that is the issue. Opportunity and gender equality. In the women's matter research, had research like this, I am quoting, the lack of specific company measures to recruit, retain, promote and develop women is the most important barrier to increasing gender diversity within top management and their organizations. Yes. And the double burden for women, balancing work and domestic responsibilities, is the next highest hindrance. Whatever you may say, mother is a mother. So she has to look after the child. So we have to create an enabling environment in such a manner that they can balance both. Okay, so providing skills and leadership training for female participants is another promising area. In July 2020, I just got a good research study on Bangladesh women. Whether women remain disadvantaged in access to management positions was done in Bangladesh. 4 large garment factories were taken as a sample. 3 interesting set of results emerged. 1, not much skill difference is there between marginal female and male supervisor candidates. They are almost equal. 2, initially, marginal female candidates have lower productivity, but after 4 to 6 months, this gap disappears. The initially worst performance stems from negative belief of workforce about abilities of female supervisors. That is why in 6 months there's a catch up and they outpace the productivity of men. And third, factories previously promoted fewer women that would have been optimal. So this also is there. Even though they were fit to be promoted, so because of this kind of feelings, wrong feelings, they are not promoted. So this July 20th research should give enough ideas to employers all over India. They should erase this kind of feeling about women.
There's still so much to do.
Yes.
Anyways, so what are the? I mean, having said all things, so I want to understand from you. You have been executive director of RBI. You have worked since like 3 decades almost in RBI. So I just wanted to understand from your side. I mean, what are the current schemes which are available on tap for improving the lot of women, the women in India? So how can we empower women? How can these women get access to these kind of resources which they are even not even aware of it? So this is something I thought, would help out our women here.
Yes, yes. And ironically, many things are there for many years. And yes, as a practitioner, at least for 3 states, financial inclusion program, which financial inclusion and education program was a huge program aiming at women. Even though it doesn't speak openly as a women-oriented one, but the implicit objective was to empower women in the family only. Nari Shakti schemes in many banks, Stand Up India, Agri Cleaning and Agri Business, PMEGP, etc. are meant to improve a lot of women. Under current financial inclusion program, the scheme of self-help groups for women and cities run by banks in each district, mind is not today, last 10 years.
Yes.
Meant to help such girls in finding livelihood. This requires an intensified identification of potential beneficiaries and their training and development in sources of earning. They can be a major part of current programs in tree plantation, vegetable cereal production, now what is happening after COVID in interior villages. See, these MFIs, microfinance institutions, are said to have boosted women-oriented small businesses income and hence the standard of living of poorer sections. The special inclusion of MFIs for women as their business agents springs from the fact, you see, this is interesting, and this I have heard in many villages. I have asked MFIs banks why you give loans to women SHGs. What is the beauty in that? So I'm telling the results there. Why they give it? They find that women are better at organizing themselves as a group.
True.
First, very soon they can organize themselves because they are in nature sociable as a group. That is, women SHG can be created very fast. They are not risk averse as men are.
Yes.
From bearing a child to giving birth and all, they are taking huge risk ab initio.
Absolutely.
And hence are prone to handle even credit better. More likely to repay a loan because a woman takes it as a part of his moral dignity to pay a loan.
True.
A man in rural areas takes the loan, drinks it away.
Yes.
Because he doesn't care what happens. But the woman is very conscious.
Yes.
If the bank man comes and मेरे घर में कोरी की कर गया for the loan and all, she's more.
Women are very organized.
Yes. So by nature and above all, being savings oriented, more savings oriented. Also, if I, as per my account, like cash is zero at this point. I insist. And Kajal, my wife, she will get about 50,000 cash. So they are by nature like this. So, yes, there is psychological. So they will save by nature, whatever may be the amount less, by nature. So they are nature saving oriented. So that is what many branch managers, MFI heads in villages, they have told me. So I am not telling it from theory. So why? So that is why when I was also director in the banks, I was always telling that we should focus it on the women. The account holder should be women. Our government scheme is that the women in family should have the account. Loan should go to the women. The scheme should go to the women. So the idea should go to the women. Like one idea I had spread in our village. So you see, many girls are dropouts.
Yes, yes.
So either at 10 or at 12. Only ideal scenario where everybody is 12. What they are doing? So till they are married, they are just sitting idle.
Yes.
But by nature, girls are little beauty and health conscious. But these girls in the villages don't have the power of money or whoever to pursue that. So yes. I tell the branch managers, so if you give 10,000 bucks to a 12 standard girl,
so you're not audible.
One beauty parlor. So it will be a very good earning avenue, and banks will not lose in this. Villages will be clean, neat, and all these. So many things can be achieved. So that's why India's financial inclusion programs could.
Sir, can you just check your net? I'll have to call up. So let me try and get sir again.
I think we got.
Yes, sir. I think आपने आपका मोबाइल स्विच ऑफ करके रखा हुआ है. आप trying your number.
Next question.
So I was trying your number. मुझे लगा कि आपने अपना मोबाइल भी स्विच ऑफ करके रखा है, तो I was not able to get you. So thank God you're back again. Yeah. So you were talking about the schemes and how we can improve our women. Yeah. Well, so even I feel that the government has what needs of the women, what are the needs of the women, and what steps are needed. I'm happy to hear that our government has taken steps to improve the status of women. As they say, you teach women, you teach a whole family.
Yes, yes.
Well, sir. So do you also think that men and society will able to change their mindset.
Yes.
So that
is a big point. So that is why educating men to be the custodians of dignity of women, not their fate, is required. So in my mind, syllabus from KG1 to college should include course on moral science in which all relevant advices may be taught. Male and female physiology should be discussed from a viewpoint of health and better practiced in institutions. Provisions of co-ed. The orient with that female may be accommodated as a co-worker.
Oh no, again. So we should have, sir, in a moment. There's some technical issue.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I think there is some distance again.
Yes, I think there's some technical glitch होता है because maybe Bombay में बारिश बहुत है इसलिए शायद हो रहा है.
Yes. What I was telling, it should be a community-based intervention on gender sensitization, starting from the parents, the society. With the other way it can be done, because unless people, there is moral education or persuasion by the children.
So you're done, sir?
Yes, so that point.
Yes. Yeah, so as you said, I mean, changes are generally hard to adopt first, but with time it does become a habit. So I think this is something a most welcome change if they adopt, provided. Am I audible, sir? Oh no, again, there's a technical glitch. So let me get him back. You now, so I want to understand how does the political leadership help to maintain this problem? So we were talking about the society mindset. Yes. So now, how does this political leadership help us to maintain this problem?
So the only way it can be done is by making women part of law-making and political process. So there is a general view in favor of making the women a part of the very law-making process, so that they can get a better feel of the issue and take appropriate decisions.
All right.
It has been empirically verified in a cross-country research study that greater representation of women in parliament led to higher expenditure on education as a share of GDP. And another study also suggested that in India, women's leadership in local politics has been found to reduce corruption.
Yes.
Political participation by women too remains an extremely high inequality area for India, as it is in most of the rest of the world. The number of women in ministerial and parliamentary roles in India is only 11% that of men.
Yes.
Compared to 22% globally.
Yes.
So based on the data from the Inter-Parliamentary Union, this low share is despite the potential benefits from increased participation of women. All these research show, though a lot of talk is going around, nothing much has been done so far.
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm sure, sir, that it will change for a good or better, maybe. So fingers crossed, and hopefully it does change. Well, finally, can we conclude with a concise and meaningful definition of empowering women?
Yes. So now we have come to a stage where we can define it properly.
Yes.
I will like to define it like this. Empowering women means letting women smile with grace and dignity.
Absolutely.
Let them gain self-confidence to stand on their own feet. So this is, in simple and small terms, what empowering women would be, which has been massively underdone in Indian case. A lot of things have to be done in this area.
True. Very well said, sir. And I too also believe when women recognize her power, she is courageous, determined, and unstoppable. So more power to our women, not only in India, but globally. And thank you so much for your response. I believe women should definitely be supported, and this will only help them achieve wonders. Your initiative too must have empowered many women out there. Teenagers must be guided properly too, so that they can shape their careers. Supporting people has always been our objective, and I hope the situation improves soon. Thank you so much, sir, for being part of this incredible conversation, insightful conversation with Social Tables, and we look forward to have you again with many such conversations on financial inclusion, especially. Thank you so much, sir. Take care.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Take care and stay safe. So this is another new challenge what we had faced, and we have finally completed our show. Thank you, audience. Thank you for being very patient, and yeah, it was wonderful to have you all, because it wouldn't have been possible without you all. Thank you so much, and stay safe, maintain social distancing, and be kind to each other. Very important.